building public works. No competition to cause trouble because anybody can help himself to anything. As I said, with a perfect race, government is entirely unnecessary." "And do you consider the Martians a perfect race?" asked the captain grimly. "Not at all. But they've existed so much longer than man that they're evolved, socially at least, to the point where they don't need government. They work together, that's all." Jarvis paused. "Queer, isn't it? As if Mother Nature were carrying on two experiments, one at home and one on Mars. On Earth it's trial of an emotional, highly competitive race in a world of plenty. Here it's the trial of a quiet, friendly race on a desert, unproductive, and inhospitable world. Everything here makes for cooperation. Why, there isn't even the factor that causes so much trouble at home: sex." "Huh?" "Yeah. Tweel's people reproduce like the barrels in the mud cities. Two individuals grow a third one between them. Another proof of Leroy's theory that Martian life is neither animal nor vegetable. Besides, Tweel was a good enough host to let him poke down his beak and twiddle his feathers, and the examination convinced Leroy." "Oui," confirmed the biologist. "It is true." "But anarchy," grumbled Harrison disgustedly. "It would show up on a dizzy, half-dead pill like Mars." "It'll be a good many centuries before you have to worry about it on Earth," grinned Jarvis. He resumed his narrative. "Well, we wandered through that sepulchral city, taking pictures of everything. And then—" Jarvis paused and shuddered. "Then I took a notion to have a look at that valley we'd spotted from the rocket. I don't know why, but when we tried to steer Tweel in that direction, he set up such a squawking and screeching that I thought he'd gone batty." "If possible," jeered Harrison. "So we started over there without him. He kept wailing and screaming, 'No, no, no, Tick!' But that made us the more curious. He sailed over our heads and stuck on his beak and went through a dozen other antics. But we plowed on, and finally he gave up and trudged disconsolately along with us. The valley wasn't more than a mile southeast of the city. Tweel could have covered the distance in 20 jumps, but he lagged and loitered and kept pointing back at the city and wailing, 'No, no, no!' Then he'd sail up into the air and zip down on his beak directly in front of us, and we'd have to walk around him. I'd seen him do lots of crazy things before, of course. I was used to them. But it was as plain as print that he didn't want us to see that valley." "Why?" queried Harrison. "You asked why we came back like tramps," said Jarvis with a faint shudder. "You'll learn. We plugged along up a low rocky hill that bounded it, and as we neared the top, Tweel said, 'No breet, Tick, no breet.' Well, those were the words he used to describe the silicon monster. They were also the words he had used to tell me that the image of Fancy Long, the one that had almost lured me to the dream beast, wasn't real. I remembered that, but it meant nothing to me then. Right after that, Tweel said, 'You 112, he 112,' and then I began to see. That was the phrase he had used to explain the dream beast, to tell me that what I thought, the creature thought, to tell me how the thing lured its victims by their own desires. So I warned Leroy. It seemed to me that even the dream beast couldn't be dangerous if we were warned and expecting it. Well, I was wrong. As we reached the crest, Tweel spun his head completely around so his feet were forward, but his eyes looked backward, as if he feared to gaze into the valley. Leroy and I stared out over it, just a gray waste like this around us, with the gleam of the South Polar Cap far beyond its southern rim. That was what it was 1 second. The next, it was paradise." "What?" exclaimed the captain. Jarvis turned to Leroy. "Can you describe it?" he asked. The biologist waved helpless hands. "C'est impossible," he whispered. "Il me remue." "It strikes me dumb too," muttered Jarvis. "I don't know how to tell it. I'm a chemist, not a poet. Paradise is as good a word as I can think of, and that's not at all right. It was paradise and hell in one." "Will you talk sense?" growled Harrison. "As much of it makes sense. I tell you, one moment we were looking at a gray valley covered with blobby plants, and the next— Lord, you can't imagine that next moment. How would you like to see all your dreams made real, every desire you'd ever had gratified, everything you'd ever wanted there for the taking?" "I'd like it fine," said the captain. "You're welcome, then. Not only your noble desires, remember. Every good impulse, yes. But also every nasty little wish, every vicious thought, everything you ever desired, good or bad. The dream beasts are marvelous salesmen, but they lack the moral sense." "The dream beasts?" "Yes. It was a valley of them. Hundreds, I suppose, maybe thousands. Enough at any rate to spread out a complete picture of your desires, even all the forgotten ones that must have been drawn out of the subconscious. A paradise, of sorts. I saw a dozen fancy longs in every costume I'd ever admired on her, and some I must have imagined. I saw every beautiful woman I've ever known, and all of them pleading for my attention. I saw every lovely place I'd ever wanted to be, all packed queerly into that little valley. And I saw other things. He shook his head soberly. It wasn't all exactly pretty. Lord, how much of the beast is left in us? I suppose if every man alive could have one look at that weird valley, and could see just once what nastiness is hidden in him, well, the world might gain by it. I thanked heaven afterwards that Leroy and even Tweel saw their own pictures, and not mine. Jarvis paused again, then resumed. I turned dizzy with a sort of ecstasy. I closed my eyes, and with eyes closed I still saw the whole thing. That beautiful, evil, devilish panorama was in my mind, not my eyes. That's how those fiends work. Through the mind. I knew it was the dream beasts. I didn't need Tweel's wail of "No breed, no breed." But I couldn't keep away. I knew it was death beckoning, but it was worth it for one moment with the vision. "Which particular vision?" asked Harrison dryly. Jarvis flushed. "No matter," he said, "but beside me I heard Leroy's cry of 'Ivan! Ivan!' and I knew he was trapped like myself. I fought for sanity. I kept telling myself to stop, and all the time I was rushing headlong into the snare. Then something tripped me. Tweel. He had come leaping from behind. As I crashed down I saw him flash over me straight toward what I'd been running to, with his vicious beak pointed right at her heart." "Oh," nodded the captain. "Her heart." "Never mind that. When I scrambled up, that particular image was gone, and Tweel was in a twist of black, ropey arms, just as when I first saw him. He'd missed a vital point in the beast's anatomy, but was jabbing away desperately with his beak. Somehow the spell had lifted, or partially lifted. I wasn't 5 feet from Tweel, and it took a terrific struggle, but I managed to raise my revolver and put a Boland shell into the beast. Out came a spurt of horrible black corruption, drenching Tweel and me, and I guess the sickening smell of it helped to destroy the illusion of that valley of beauty. Anyway, we managed to get Leroy away from the devil that had him, and the three of us staggered to the ridge and over. I had presence of mind enough to raise my camera over the crest and take a shot of the valley, but I'll bet it shows nothing but gray waste and writhing horrors. What we saw was with our minds, not our eyes." Jarvis paused and shuddered. "The brute half-poisoned Leroy," he continued. "We dragged ourselves back to the auxiliary, called you, and did what we could to treat ourselves. Leroy took a long dose of the cognac that we had with us. We didn't dare try anything of Tweel's, because his metabolism is so different from ours that what cured him might kill us. But the cognac seemed to work. So after I'd done one other thing I wanted to do, we came back here, and that's all." "All, is it?" queried Harrison. "So you've solved all the mysteries of Mars, eh?" "Not by a damn sight," retorted Jarvis. "Plenty of unanswered questions are left." "Ja," snapped Boots. "Der evaporation, dat is stopped how?" "In the canals? I wondered about that too. In those thousands of miles, and against this low air pressure, you'd think they'd lose a lot, but the answer is simple. They float a skin of oil on the water." Boots nodded, but Harrison cut in. "Here's a puzzler. With only coal and oil, just combustion or electric power, where'd they get the energy to build a planet-wide canal system, thousands and thousands of miles of them? Think of the job we had cutting the Panama Canal to sea level, and then answer that." "Easy," grinned Jarvis. "Martian gravity and Martian air. That's the answer. Figure it out. First, the dirt they dug only weighed a third of its earth weight. Second, a steam engine here expands against 10 pounds per square inch less air pressure than on Earth. Third, they could build the engine 3 times as large here with no greater internal weight. And fourth, the whole planet's nearly level. Right, Poots?" The engineer nodded. "Ja, der steam engine, it is 27 times so effective here." "Well, there goes the last mystery then," mused Harrison. "Yeah?" queried Jarvis sardonically. "You answer these then. What was the nature of that vast empty city? Why do the Martians need canals, since we never saw them eat or drink? Did they really visit the Earth before the dawn of history? And if not atomic energy, what powered their ship?